Hey team, welcome back to this next review, Ferocious Warmth, School Leaders Who Inspire and Transform. It's written by Tracy Izzard in 2021, so it's really current. Even touches the pandemic in there. So you can find this one on tracyizzard.com. Now, before I jump into this, I just want to say this book I have read and reread and I've looked over, and it's actually taken the longest time to write this review, and I think it's because it's really pricked me and it's really got into my conscience. So just as we ramble through this book, I really want you to think about books that impact and ways that books and readings and situations can really prickle your thinking and disturb your thinking and make you feel almost that little bit unsettled, make you squirm, and squirming's really important for growth. Anyway, let's jump into this. Ferocious Warmth. It's transformational, or is it inspiring? Driven or caring? Why do we think we need to be one or the other? Why do we need to label our leadership? Can effective leaders be labelled or typed? Is that leadership interview question really a trick? You know, the one that's that when they say, so what type of leader are you? Finally, in Ferocious Warmth, we have leadership writing that confirms what we have all been thinking. You don't have to be labelled. You don't have to fit into a type or work in one way and not the other. Tracy Izzard brings us a book and a model that says, and, yet. Ferocious Warmth is about leaders who inspire and transform. Leaders who lead with both, creating an interdependency of pathways, not an exclusivity. Not one or the other, not polarity, rather duality. It's not a choice. You can be ferocious, yet warm. Izzard says, the world needs more leaders with the ferocity to lead transformation, and the warmth to inspire and connect. Collaboration, connection and results. Pushing beyond mediocrity, pushing to things that are slightly more extraordinary, committing to trust that we, trust and care. Trust is the lifeblood of success. Ferocious about purpose and warmth with a deep belief in people. I think I have finally found my model in Ferocious Warmth. It's about having the courage to lift the bar and do that with care to support, in a supportive culture, to support a culture of well-being. It's a Goldilocks approach. Not too much, not too little, just right. Nothing works in absolutes. There are 235 pages to get into. Some concepts repeat and circle back through the book. However, read on here for the guts of it all. It's drawn into 2 pages. Some thoughts from her previous 2 books come back here too. You just have to love the edge of leadership that Tracy brings. It is where thinking should be. Firstly, what are these 2 words? What is it to be ferocious? And what is it to be warm? Ferocious is about clear purpose, high quality, making courageous decisions, strong advocates, challenging assumptions, and innovating practice. And warmth? Warmth is about compassion in all relationships, not anger, and building emotional intelligence. She says, be the blend, head and heart. Not just to do, but to be. And that one's a really big one, going beyond tasks to leading and transforming. Be the leader. It is a way of being, not doing. We know that leadership pulls from our strengths, our values, and our context in this moment. It's about being very, very self-aware and aware of where you are, who you are with, and what type of leadership is needed. Knowing your strengths and your shadows as a leader, understanding how you impact on yourself and those around you. This is leadership. Izard says, do your inner work. Know yourself first. Put on your own oxygen mask before you build others. That's Roland Barthes and Chris Argyris. Those are guys that I really appreciate and really value their perspective and leadership. When you're not the blend, you end up at the extremes. More of this later. But leading from the edge and not from the middle gives us either fearsome, ferocious, dwelling leadership or enmeshed, warmth-dwelling leadership. And actually we need to be the blend, and we need a bit of both. So fearsome and ferocious leadership, that causes trauma, and it's an environment of fear and persecution. It's where there seems to be a need to be right, where we have control. Let me flick to this one, where it's all about control and status matters. Being seen as credible is very, very important. And these leaders have a need for their wisdom to be acknowledged. Achieving work that is good enough is a measure. It's about my work has to be good enough. When you're in enmeshed or that warmth-dwelling leadership, all you're seeking is somewhere where, well, what it does is it actually creates and dwells in drama with a team that is weary and needs rescuing. There is a need to feel useful. You want to feel confided in. There's a feeling of needing to be liked and a feeling of being irreplaceable and belonging. You end up solving other people's problems, and that's a way of being. Being accepted is important. And these leaders measure themselves as successful when they see themselves as being good enough. And FYI, you naturally default to one of these ways, or on the spectrum of this, when you are feeling challenged and when things get tough, when you're tired, when it's a bit rough on the home front. So you've got to know which way you go, and you've got to recognise this. And by recognising it and understanding yourself in this, you bring yourself back to a balance. It's always about balance. And we won't get it right all of the time. You will feel like you're walking on a tightrope at times. It's okay, and this is leadership. Izard gives us more labels in all of this too. She talks about the saboteurs and the defaulters when you're not centered. And she gives us, like I say, this 5-stage model: trauma, compliance, transform, connection, drama. Choose from these words and defaults of leadership. Actually look at these words and put ticks on them. Work out how you default when you're not in balance, when you can't be that balance of the ferocious warmth and you drop to one side or the other. Do you fall to a way of judging, or do you become a pleaser or a controller? Are you a high achiever, or do you avoid things when you become uncentered? Do you become the victim or hyper-vigilant and the stickler for details? Do you become restless? That's me. Controlling or blame, or hyper-rational and hyper-focused on things? Knowing your defaults is so important. When you can see yourself working in this way, it's time to stop. It's time to regroup. It's time to recenter and to find your balance. Breathe. Just be. Take a wonder walk. Find joy. For me, move. Coach. Stop. Talk. Reflect. Get back to ferocious warmth. Find that centre again. So how do we do this? What mix do we need? What qualities do we need to pull from each profile? Well, they're listed here, and we're all good for a list. Let's create another list. Now, ferocious warmth is this infinity sign, and ideally you want to be centered in the middle, drawing from both sides. We need to be ferocious in that we need to be objective, but we need to be warmth with compassion. Results focused, but with emotional reasoning. Cognitive reasoning, balancing that out. Empathetic yet strategic. Nurturing and supportive yet decisive. Clear and process driven yet people focused and loving. Consistent yet open to influence. Reliable and really driven by beliefs. Having high expectations yet listening to your intuition. Working from factual knowledge and an evidence base yet connecting. Speaking with and working with authority yet being optimistic. Taking action yet exploring. It calls for us to be the blend, and that blend is so critical. Of course, it doesn't end there. We jump into this part here where Izard throws us some other leadership thoughts that could perhaps be at the centre of leadership evaluations and appraisals, more so than some we have in current processes. She calls them leadership intelligences. So she has people, that's emotional intelligence, purpose and plan, strategic intelligence, and understanding the potential of all, that learning intelligence. So people intelligence, emotional intelligence is about managing self and others, creating buy-in and commitment, working with self-compassion and empathy, understanding values and ways of being, building and connecting a community, having emotional reasoning. Move across more to the strategic intelligence, systems thinking, vision, purpose, strategy, understanding mental models, clarifying goals and having goal clarification for people, prioritizing, resourcing, taking action. And then finally, growing a professional learning community under the learning intelligence, being a leader as a learner, or a learner as a leader. Collaboration and collective efficacy, innovation, working with agility and flexibility, and having conversations that really, really matter. Leaders who are strong in learning intelligence thrive on being out of their comfort zones and in the learning zone. So then the second half of the book takes all of that and drops it into 4 quarters. So if you're a mathematician, there's actually an eighth of the book for each section, thereabouts. So think about this, the formula of adding ferocious and warmth. Ferocious and warmth. People, purpose and plan, and the potential of all. Add that all together, and then Izard gives us 4 last leadership stretches. Be expansive, be connected, be courageous and authentic. And of course, it doesn't stop there. She gives us measures for each of those. So let's look at those measures as a final stretch and a final run in this book. So expansive. Are you curious about yourself? Curiosity, not judgment, mistakes and failures. The key to this is to drop the need to be right. Are you building collective capacity? We never arrive culture, where collaboration is at the centre. Collaboration is learning out loud. Collective capacity, where leading learning is beyond cooperation. It's going deep. Are you confronting barriers in yourself and others? Mindset barriers, environment, inauthentic dialogue. Are you owning your ignorant truths? Are you mindful and honest about what you don't know? Is there a culture of co-creating and looking for possibilities? Are you leading transformations? Thinking differently, shared visions, allowing for innovation, seeking opportunities, seizing disruptions and creating experiences. So connected. Are you connected to yourself and then others? When making decisions, do you look for insight? Are you asking questions like, for what purpose? Why? This is an interesting one that some find prickly. Are you leading with love? Are you doing what you love to do? And is there joy in what you are doing? Are you challenged and inspired? Who on your team needs your love and your connection, and are you meeting this need? Remember, those who challenge us the most need us the most. Are you seen as authentic? Do your actions match your words? Do you acknowledge others? Are you a storyteller? It really is warming and creates a reality. Are you having ferocious warmth conversations? There's a little saying here I just had to drop in under this one here about being connected. Kindness is loaning someone else your strength instead of reminding them of their weaknesses. And then we need to be courageous in our leadership. Do you walk towards hard work? Do you have the courage to build the right team? How do you set the tone? Do you offer clarity? Clarity gives courage. And what do you stand for? What are your driving values? Do you know? Have you shared these? Sharing creates accountability. Do you know your why? Have you found your purpose? What is your driving force? Do you have the courage to change? And finally, authenticity. And I always think leadership starts with authenticity. Do you own who you are, including your mistakes? Are you a saviour or a curator? One works with ferocious warmth leadership and the other doesn't. Do you operate in a power with or a power over mode? Do you influence? Influence is a higher power than authority. Influence comes from authenticity. Perhaps influence is another word for credibility here. What ripples are you creating with your actions? Positive ripples come from authenticity. As I say, know thy impact. So that's it. Draw your infinity sign. Look into the centre of it and place yourself there. Be aware of the extremes and what happens when you do venture from the middle. Recognise it. Recenter. Be curious. Reconnect. Connect with yourself and your people. Be authentic and be brave. Courageous. Be big. Leadership isn't a label and nor is it a box. You can lead with passion and drive, yet warmth and compassion. Be the leader you always wanted. Perhaps break the mould.